What's going on, you guys? Welcome back to another video. There's a Facebook support group called Healing from Hidden Abuse of Narcissistic and Toxic Relationships. And I joined the group a little while back. And the only thing I'm not going to say I don't like it, but it's hard to find support groups that talk about the type of narcissism abuse I went through. And those of you who are familiar with my channel, and I speak of narcissism abuse that I dealt with in the workplace. So I'm talking about a coworker, and I've been at this job for a very long time. So a lot of people may not relate to that because they probably haven't worked with one for over a year or whatever. But I dealt with this for 5 years at my job. So anyway, like I say, the support group is on Facebook for narcissistic abuse and toxic relationships. The other day somebody asked, what are some movies on narcissism? And one of the comments was this movie called Gaslight in 1940. So it was the 1940 version, which is in black and white, and there's also a 1944 version that's in black and white. And it's funny because a while back I was on YouTube looking up like the top 10 like suspense films and horror films because I just love movies. Y'all know I'm a movie fanatic. And I sometimes forget about certain movies that I really, really like. And especially suspense films. So I'm just looking for something to watch. You know, I get my ideas from a little bit of anywhere. And that movie came up in the top 10 of suspense films. It come up as Gaslight 1940 version. And I have been planning on watching it. I never got around to doing so. So anyway, I checked both versions out last night. It was just so late when the movies went off, I didn't have time to do a review on it. So I want to do a review on the 1940 version of Gaslight, starring Antoine Walbrook as Paul and Diane Vineyard as Bella. So the movie started off with a little old lady. She's stitching her embroidery board, and someone comes in behind her. They grabs a piece of yarn from the table aside of her, and they strangles her to death. And so they proceeded to like tear apart the house, searching for something. And I mean, they really destroyed the house. They even took a knife and they ripped up the furniture. And so they came back and faced the little old lady, and they yanked what looked like an expensive necklace from around her neck. And then they left the scene. And so the servant finds the little lady dead, and she's screaming for help. The police came, and, you know, I guess they were searching around the crime scene, everything like that, took the little lady away. So the property went up for sale, and it remained vacant for a very long time. Then suddenly there's a couple who show up with a moving truck. They moved into the home. They had 2 servants. One goes by the name of Elizabeth, who's the older lady, and the other named Nancy, who's the more younger and giddy one. And you can almost tell immediately that Paul is the narcissist by his grandiose walk. He's walking like he's the king of the world. And his wife, Bella, she's a victim of his abuse, and you could tell by her soft-spokenness, codependency, and being submissive towards him. And he had been hiding a lot of her belongings and constantly accusing her of losing things. He already had her believing that she was losing her marbles, and he was giving her so long to get herself together before he had her committed to a mental hospital. He was so evil and manipulative. He had like all of the characteristics of a covert narcissist. From the love bombing to the devaluing, the smearing. He even had the whole town believing that she was crazy. Like, how could you do this to your own wife? He was so disrespectful and such a low-down dirty pig. He even flirted directly in front of Bella with a servant, the younger one named Nancy. Bella was so sweet and also afraid of Paul that he had completely just taken over her thoughts. It's like he had to tell her what to think. It really had gotten to that point. And then there's this playground scene where she goes out for a walk. She also has a little dog. And we know narcissists, they hate pets. And he hated her dog. Like, he would put the dog outside of the room, anywhere where he is in the house. He didn't want the dog in his presence. So he would put the dog on the outside of the room or lock the dog in another room. And you would hear the poor little dog crying. It's just so sad. And it's sad that he put her through that. Now, he know this is something that she loved. So he couldn't stand to see her happy in that moment. He couldn't stand her enjoying, something. If she wasn't putting all her attention on him, he had to take that away from her. So again, there was this playground scene, and she met a detective while she was taking a dog out for a walk. And the detective, they had a little conversation, and you could tell that she was like, kind of looking around like she hopes she don't see Paul walking, because he go out for frequent walks. So she was like, well, I better get back home and stuff like that. And my husband, he waiting on me, whatever. So there were some kids who came to the park, and the kids were doing something they had no business doing, I guess. I don't know. And there's something strange about that scene, because I'm like, these kids look like they weren't even allowed on the playground. So maybe they had done some bad things. I don't know. But the detective had offered to buy the kids some ice cream. And so he asked Bella to come along with him. And she was like, I'm sorry, but I hardly even know you, and I need to get home to my husband. And so the detective was like, oh, it's going to be okay. Don't worry. Like, he was letting her know, I'm not trying to flirt with you. I'm old enough to be your father. So she was saying, okay, I guess it's not going to hurt to come along with you. Yeah, it's a good idea. Let's go get them some ice cream. So he told the little kids, come on, let's go to the ice cream shop. They went to the ice cream shop, and the detective bought the kids ice cream. And they were kind of having a small talk. And then Paul, he was walking by. He noticed Bella in there, and she turned and seen him, and the look in his eyes just looked so evil. The look in his eyes was telling her that she was punished. And the expression she gave, she already knew it. And so she left, and they made it back home. And I don't know, she was like crying and stuff, and just trying to explain to him. She even mentioned to him at one point, like, why did you marry me if you just want to keep me sheltered in the house? And he said, now this is what they say. We know all narcissists say this, where you're not the same person you used to be. So it's like he's telling her, the reason why I'm doing you like this is because you making me treat you this way, because you changed. And then she's just like crying and everything, and just wondering, like, what do I do? Like, explain to me, what do I do so bad? Like, she's constantly trying to get him to understand that I'm not trying to make you angry, even though she wasn't doing anything wrong. And he constantly had her thinking that she had done something wrong, but at the same time, he couldn't explain it. All he was telling her is that you keep forgetting things, and that's cause for punishment. And then he would threaten her with, you're losing your mind. He would keep reminding her that she's losing her mind. Just craziness, the things that narcissists do. So that went on for a while. And she even asked him at one point about getting mail, because she was so close with her cousin, who she hadn't seen in a while since she had moved to that town, and they bought that house. And he was like, just kind of cutting her off, not really want to talk about her cousin and stuff like that. And it just made her so upset. And then she was like, well, did I get any mail? He was like, I told you that you don't get any mail. I'm the only one who gets mail. But she was receiving mail. She was receiving mail from her cousin. He was hiding the mail. He would open the mail, read the mail, and put the mail in his jacket. So I'm like, ugh. So she was like, well, he told me that he sent me mail. And then he would get angry at her. And then when he get angry at her, that would kind of, frighten her. And she would run off crying. And then he would love bomb her again. But he would give this evil look before doing so. Like that made him feel good in a moment. I'm telling you, all characteristics of a narcissist. And so, what else had happened on the movie? And then she just couldn't question him about anything. It's like she was afraid to, because she know that he would devalue her in some way. He even got to the point where you seen his rage come out. And it frightened her so bad, she just fell to the ground crying. It was just so, so sad. And he would tell her, go to your room, like he's talking to a little child. He was like, go up to your room. And it's so sad, like she's been putting time out. And again, she's so submissive to him and so considerate of his feelings that she didn't even realize that he had brainwashed her to think that something was wrong with her. So, again, he would pretend to feel bad for making her cry. And it's just so much that kind of like, it took me there to the moments that I've had with the narcissist who at my job. And I mean, just everything. So he had promised her, like, he's treating her to a gift. Like if she did something wrong, like, if I do this for you, you promise me that you're going to behave. That's how he was talking to her. And so he told her that he would take her out to a piano performance. And she was just so excited. Now, before they left for the performance, he had hid her brooch. He hid her brooch. And she usually have her brooch in her drawer. He took the brooch and put it in a purse that he wanted her to take to the performance. Just like I'm pretty sure he dressed her and everything. Like he completely controlled her life. So he hid the brooch as they got dressed, and she came to him and stuff like that. And he told her she's beautiful, but he was like, but your hair, I don't like your hair like that. I'm like, he just had to do her that way while they getting ready to head out. So she go to the mirror. She's trying to fix her hair. He got this dirty, sneaky look on his face. Okay. And he's just an asshole, just a straight up asshole. And so at the performance, he's staring at her the whole while she's all into the show. It's like he hated to see her in such a happy place. So he had to like kill her vibe by asking her about that damn brooch that he had already hid from her. And, to make her think that she lost it. So she was like, I probably lost it. It probably fell behind a thing. She was like, I'm watching this right now. Let's just enjoy the show. And so he was getting louder into the piano as he kind of hit that key, that loud key to get their attention. And then people was like, shh, be quiet. We trying to hear the show. And so he just kept picking with her about the brooch. And she was like, I don't know where it is. Like, chill out. We at the performance. Can we talk about it when we get home? So he takes her purse. He opens up the purse and he shows her the brooch. And then she just like screamed out loud. She just broke down, poor Bella. And then he takes her and just in the middle of the show, disrupting the show, in that moment, he had to make it all about him. So he took her out of the show. She's breaking down, crying, and just like, I didn't know, like, that's what they do. They have to take you away from the good place that you're in, even if it's just for 5 minutes. And again, that triggered me. That took me back to the narc when we would go somewhere, and even if we in a workshop for work, and if it's something that, like, we have a special guest speaking, and I'm all into it, I'm all into whatever it is, and she can't focus her mind on things like that. So while everyone else is focused on whatever the speaker is talking about, she's elbowing me or asking me, are you going to be able to loan me that money? Like, she's constantly pressuring me to loan her money that I told her I don't know for sure if I'll be able to do so. Got certain bills coming up that I'm going to have to take care of, but I don't know. She would even ask, well, can you borrow it from your kids for me? Or can you see if your kids have it? And I'm like, you see, I'm enjoying myself for the moment, or whatever it is. Like, why are you trying to take me out of the moment to talk about something that I really don't want to talk about? But that's what narcissists do. They love to disrupt you in a peaceful moment. And so that's what he did. He had to make this all about him and, just completely change her mood. And then he tried to punish her in the middle of the performance. He interrupted the performance. The pianist had to stop playing because Bella broke down. He took her out of there. And on their ride home, he gave her the silent treatment. And you know they do that because the narc, when I would let her know, I don't know if I'm going to be able to loan you the money, she would kind of back off a little bit before giving another sad story of why she really needed, which was all a lie. And then if I just straight up let her know, oh, I probably text her later on in the day, I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to loan it till you have other things to take care of. I wouldn't get a text back from her. And then the following day at work, I get the silent treatment. That's when the silent treatment would just come out of nowhere. Like if she's punishing me because I didn't give her what she wanted and I didn't owe it to her. So back to this review. And so, so on the way home, he's giving her the silent treatment and he just looks so evil in the car. I mean, on the ride home. And so once they got home, she just seemed so afraid, like she didn't know what he was going to do next. She even started questioning her own sanity. And I noticed at one point of the movie, when she had asked him, like, why did you marry me? She said, for you to just keep me in bondage all the time and stuff like that. Like, this what you bought this house for? Because she mentioned something about, like, did you buy this house with my money? And I'm like, oh my gosh, she did not just say that. Like, if I'm telling you. Now, this is in 1940, y'all. And that character, Paul, he is playing a hell of a role of a covert narcissist. And the way they are with the money. I mean, he took this woman's money before marrying her or after marrying her and bought this house. And then he's treating her like a prisoner in her own home. Constantly punishing her. Here we are now in 2019. The same thing we speak of today in any conversations about the narcissist. The same thing that's happening now was happening then. It's been happening since the beginning of time. Nothing has changed, which goes to show that this demon has been around since the beginning of time. So Nancy, the youngest of the maids, she constantly made passes at him. He flirted with her a little bit, but mostly her to him, until she finally got her kiss. When he made Bella go upstairs, like he would make her go to her room like she's going to timeout. So as soon as she run upstairs to her room or whatever, that's when she make her way in his presence and he closed the double doors and it would just be the two of them. And then she would flirt. I'm talking about Nancy, the maid. And then they kissed and stuff like that. And he's pretty much talking to her like, you're just a little girl. You're not ready for this. And she's like, oh, I'll show you when I'm ready for all that kind of crap. Ugh. She's nothing but a snake, but she don't know no better. She just a little girl thinking that she's about to come up real quick on a rich man. And he offers to take her out on a date one night. Now, mind you, she's supposed to be into this younger guy who works with the detective, or that's either the detective's son or nephew. I don't know, but they work together. So she's supposed to have been going on a date with that guy. So I'm assuming she figured it out some kind of way. She went on a date with that dude, and then he took her. He was like, we'll just meet up at the show. And so they met up at the show. And everybody at the show, the neighborhood folk, they're going to talk about it like he's cheating on his wife with his servant. And so, but with Bella always being, caged in a house, not allowed to really go anywhere, how would she find out about it? So that just worked out perfect for him and Nancy. So Nancy, she was so excited and she couldn't wait to go on a date with him and stuff like that. So that's when the detective, he went to Bella and talked to Bella and tried to pry her for some information on Paul's background. So she was just like, why are you asking me about my husband? And he was saying, I have a reason to believe that he is not the person you think he is. And furthermore, he could have been involved in a crime that happened 20 years ago right here in his house. She was like, I don't know what you're talking about and you should leave, blah, blah, blah. And so, turns out that Paul's real name is not Paul, it's some other name. And the little old lady at the beginning of the movie was his aunt, and he's the one who strangled her to death to get her expensive jewelry. And so it's funny because that took me back to something with the narc who I work with. And when her grandmother died, it's like she would always speak of her grandmother, her grandmother, her grandmother. And we're talking about at the time she was 50 years old, and she would like, her vocabulary was of a 21-year-old. So she was always speaking of her grandmother like her grandmother just did everything for her, which she did. She took her out of the care of her mother, who was abusive, I'm assuming. And so when her grandmother died, she wanted to live in that house. And I'm like, how creepy is that to me? I'm sorry. It just is. It just is. I'm sorry if I sound sensitive about it, but she immediately moved in that house after her grandmother died. And her uncles and aunts, they were like, well, why is she getting this house? Why can't we? So I don't know. She must have had something done to where she got that house, but she claims that the house, her grandmother left her the house, but her aunts and uncles were the ones who were like, no, the house is a family home. So there's no way she just left it to you. So, y'all know she's not going to tell me the truth, but that house is really not hers. Her name is not on that home. So, yeah, so it's like she wanted to live there. She wanted to act like she's her grandmother. She just tried to pretend like she is her grandmother. And I don't know, just creepy, sick and crazy in the head. And so anyway, yeah, so the detective explained to Bella that he had killed his aunt and he just needs to find out like why. And so as some time went by, Bella was like, and why do you think that he's doing this? And he said, he was kind of explaining to Bella how Paul is, and Bella was like, yeah, that's him, like he was describing him to a T to her. And then Bella was like, but why does he, the detective was like, it's because he's gaslighting you. And she said, yeah, and about the gaslight would dim when he's away, and it would light up when he's on his way back into the house. And so he said that was his way of manipulating you and brainwashing you. But as soon as you start to kind of expose him, this is why you would see him in rage, and he would make you think that you've done something wrong, and he will punish you, and the pattern will continue until you completely just break away from him and get away from him as far as you can. And so she was just like, okay, so what do I do next? And I was just so happy because that was like the breaking point of the movie. This movie was perfectly put together. So the detective was like, I should get out of here. He's on his way back, because the lights had got a little brighter, the gas light. So that's when you know that he's on his way. And his footsteps, he wouldn't walk fast. The pattern of his footsteps, the sound of it would be the same slow rhythm, like he's walking down the aisle. Like the bride is walking down the aisle. And so, so the sound of his footsteps was just like, she just couldn't get the sound of that out of her head. And so much was going on, and she couldn't stop overthinking, like, what's wrong with me? And I'm just glad that the detective was there to be like a support system to her and just to give her clarity on what's really going on. It's a really good movie, y'all. I know y'all probably say I done damn near told the whole movie. So anyway, when he comes back home and he gets on her and she kind of confronts him about some stuff, he gets angry. The detective came out of the back. When I thought the detective left, but he didn't. He was hiding. And he said, and if she don't do it, what you gonna do to her? And I was like, yeah. And then he was like, what are you doing here? And he said, and that's not your real name. He called him by his real name, and his eyes just lit up like a deer in the headlights. And so he was just telling him, I know who you really are, and you was here 20 years ago. You killed your aunt for her expensive jewelry. You're a thief and a murderer. You're a psychopath, and you're an abuser. What you done to your wife, you're going to have to pay for it, and blah, 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 blah. And so they were just going back at it. Then it was a scuffle. He trying to beat up the detective. And, he said, oh, I know what you want. This is what you want to see. So he unlocks the chest like a drawer that he always had the key to, and Bella wasn't allowed to go in it. This is where he unlocks it, but he didn't know that the detective had already forced the drawer open, and showed all of this stuff, was trying to let Bella see that this is where he got everything hidden at. He didn't know that. So, but this was before he made it back to the house. And so, again, when he was making it back to the house, that's when he said, I got to get out of here. And he told Bella, just run back up to your room and act like I wasn't here. But when Paul made it back home, he noticed that the thing had been messed with. So he called Bella down and he asked her, like, what's going on with my drawer? Who been in it? So she was like, I don't know. And so he was just ready to go off. That's when the detective came from around in the other room. And he was like, I was here and yes, and I told her everything about you and blah, blah, blah. So I already told y'all about that part. So he was saying, oh, so this is what you want to see? Go ahead, take a look. And when they looked in there, it was things in there that he had been hiding from Bella. So she was like, my brooch, am I this, am I that? And I've been looking for this and you made me think that I lost it. And I knew I wasn't losing my mind and stuff like that. So him and the detective start to argue. They even start to scuffle and stuff like that. And I think the younger detective came in and it was a little scuffle. And then the older detective came behind Paul and knocked him over his head and knocked his tail out. So he's knocked out. The detective ties him up with rope to a chair and he left to go and call the police. So Bella, she got a knife. He was like, get that knife, Bella, and untie me. Let me go. And she was like, no. And then that's when she was looking at the brooch. And that's when the detective opened it up and says, there's an initial in here. And she said, yeah, I couldn't make that out. And then when he said the initial, he said, this is the initial of the aunt. I guess the aunt or whatever who had passed away, who he had killed. No, I don't think that was it was the aunt. It was the aunt's initial who he had killed. And she said there was a part in here that there was some stones or something, some jewelry. And then Bella said, yeah, and I hid it in that vase because I didn't know what to do with it. So Paul never known of that. And his eyes got big again. Now, this is why he's tied up. He was trying to brainwash Bella and tell her to untie me with a knife. And so while he tried to get her loose to get the stones, that's when the other police came in and got him. And I mean, even while the police was there, his mind was so stuck on those stones, the jewelry or whatever, he didn't even care that he was about to go to jail for murder and for bigamy, because come to find out is that he is a bigamist because he was married to a woman in a different part of the world, like the woman that moved away to another country or something, which means that he wasn't even legally married to Bella. I was like, boy, I'm telling you, if this don't describe the narcissist. And yeah, so I hope y'all was able to keep up with me with this. I really like this movie. I was so into it. I mean, it just describes the covert narcissist to a T. And so much in this movie, it just took me back to everything describing the narc who I work with. And so many things about her just stuck out to me. Yeah, so that concludes the movie review. They took him off the jail, and that's the way the movie went off, other than her cousin came to the house, so they was finally able to see each other. And that's the way it ended. It's a pretty good movie. The movie, they gave it 100%. But I guess like Rotten Tomatoes nowadays, they gave it 100% because back then, I guess there wasn't any ratings for movies. I don't know. But anyway, I looked it up on Google. They gave it 100%. I give it a straight up 5 out of 5 stars. And the version, the 1944 version, I couldn't get through it. I couldn't get into it. It was also in black and white, but it wasn't as crystal clear as the 1940 version. And it just didn't really keep me. It was like way too much going on in the movie. I just wasn't that into it. So I didn't watch all of it. I can't really give it a really good rating or anything. I don't know. It may be good to y'all. But like I said, I didn't even really watch it. The Rotten Tomatoes or whatever um, website gave it 86%. So yeah, the 1940 version is much, much better. But like I say, it's a really good classical movie on narcissism abuse. And if y'all like this video, please give it a thumbs up, leave your comments down below. And I'm going to put the link down below in the description box if y'all want to check it out. So as always, thank y'all for watching, and I'll talk to you soon.